LEICA or LUMIX. Both camera brands make L-mount cameras, and so today I'm going to cover 9 different cameras and 11 criteria for each camera to help you decide what is the best camera for your budget, for your needs. After lots of testing, there is a lot of overlap between the different cameras, so if you don't necessarily need the LEICA badge, then you could probably save a lot of money and look at one of the LUMIX models. If you're a new viewer, I have done detailed comparison videos on many of the mentioned cameras, and I can link those below. Today is more of an overview just to give you a basic quick recap of which camera might be best for you. This video will also include some hands-on testing side by side of some of the different cameras we're talking about. And yeah, they're not as different as you might imagine, especially considering the different price points. With the now lower prices of the older LEICA L-mount cameras, I think now is a great time to compare whether it's better to get an older LEICA camera or a brand new LUMIX camera. All that coming up. Hey guys, Matt here from MrLeica.com. If you're a new viewer, I tend to review LEICA cameras, but I also own LUMIX, so I thought I was in a great position to be able to give a non-biased view on the LEICA and LUMIX cameras and what might be best for your needs. When you think of LEICA, you probably think, ooh, LEICA's expensive, LUMIX is cheap. But that's not quite true. The latest LUMIX model is £3,000, and you can get some of the older flagship LEICA cameras for closer to £2,500. So there is a lot of grey area now between the two brands. No more chat, let's jump straight in. 9 different cameras, and then I'm going to cover 11 criteria for each camera. Number 1, photography and resolution. The cameras we're looking at go from 24 megapixels through to more than 44 megapixels, with 60 megapixels being the highest. The question is, do you need more than 24 megapixels? If you love to crop heavily in post, you probably like the idea of more megapixels, but as I found out, that does require faster computers, more storage space, and all the things that come with bigger files.
As I do a lot of street photography, I changed my SL2S for an SL3. It's a 60 megapixel sensor with triple resolution, which offer more detail and flexibility.
The SL2 as a hybrid is a better camera, in my opinion, if you are looking for the larger megapixel sensor so that you can get the most out of photos and videos.
Number 2, autofocus and autofocus speed. All the cameras we're looking at give you basic autofocus. You've got the older style contrast detect autofocus, which is slower but still works fine for my needs. You've then got phase detect autofocus, which is a bit faster. Then you've got the latest hybrid autofocus, which is even faster. The way I look at it is you only really need the fastest autofocus speeds if you're using continuous AF or CAF. If you shoot single shot autofocus, which is how I tend to shoot when I shoot with my models, you can easily get away with the slower autofocus speeds like the contrast detect. Another thing you need to think about is what lenses are you planning to use on your L-mount cameras. If you're planning to use all autofocus lenses, then this topic is probably more important to you. If you like me, use more manual focus lenses, maybe less so.
Do you notice a difference in autofocus speed? Unfortunately, I don't notice a huge difference between the SL2 and the SL2S in autofocus speeds.
As I do a lot of street photography, I changed my SL2S for an SL3 for better hybrid autofocus with phase and contrast detection.
Number 3, manual focus and electronic viewfinders. All the cameras we're looking at will allow you to manually focus, say, like a M-mount lenses, if that's something you're interested in. But some cameras have got much better viewfinders than other cameras. If you've got failing eyesight the same as me, or you love adapting quirky lenses to your L-mount cameras, having an EVF that's got easy to focus is really valuable. Number 4, do you need a tilt screen or like a flippy articulating screen, or are you happy with a fixed screen? Tilt screens are great if you love shooting from the hip and kind of looking at like a waist level view, the same as if you use a tripod. That said, they're less useful if you're planning to do portraits and using your screen to focus, because the screen does not turn the way you need it to. If that's you, you'd be better looking for cameras with a fully articulating flippy screen like you get from LUMIX, and those are also very good if you're doing, say, selfie mode and recording videos of yourself.
Well, the main advantage of the SL3 above my SL2S is the flippy screen. With my old knees, I can get down lower if I'm shooting landscape or waist level when I'm shooting street.
The tilting screen for low angle shots and creative framing.
5, in-body image stabilization, or IBIS. IBIS allows you to shoot at slower shutter speeds and still get sharp images, and also stops any camera shake if you're doing handheld video footage. Hey Thomas, as a former SL user, have you noticed any differences between the SL and the SL2S?
The nice thing is it has inbuilt image stabilization, so for video, but also when you're just walking around, it's amazing. Like, especially you can put a variable ND filter on it, long exposures from the hand, 1 second, easy. Like at night it's like having a built-in tripod into the camera. So
6. Do you need to shoot in low light conditions? Personally, I tend to shoot in daylight, so I don't normally use more than maybe 6400 ISO, but some people do shoot in really dark conditions, so then you do need the higher ISO capabilities.
I'd say I push my SL2S 1 to 2 steps further than I would push my Leica SL2.
During our Patreon meetup, I had access to a few of the cameras, so I tried to do a low light comparison. Here's all cameras at 3200, 6400, 12,500 and 25,000. Now here's the same cropped in 3,200, 6,400, 12,500 and 25,000. Maybe pause the video to see the breakdown of each image. Higher ISO isn't particularly important to me as a model photographer, but for people like Richard, one of my patrons who shoots available light only theatre and dance work.
I use the SL3, been using the SL3 for about 6 months in the theatre and dance, and often use ISOs up to 40,000. I looked at my last dance shoot and there were 4 images at 40,000 ISO and they were perfectly usable.
Just a few words about my short experience with the SL2S and the LUMIX S1R2. I'm really enjoying the SL2S for its low light capability, particularly on a recent trip to Iceland, and for the gorgeous rendering and usability for portrait work.
Number 7, colours. Now, you may think that Leica colours are great and Lumix colours are maybe more normal or vice versa, but you'd probably be surprised at how similar the colours are from both Lumix cameras and Leica cameras. I've done a lot of side-by-side testing between the various Lumix and Leica cameras, and there's not that much difference, to the point that once you add a preset, you can get my presets below, quick plug. If you add a preset, you can pretty much get the same image from all the cameras that we're looking at. When comparing unedited RAW files as seen here, the SL2S tends to be warmer, but to the most part they can all be very similar once edited.
SL2S, actually the files are pretty similar to the SL, the colors are pretty similar.
I do notice a slight difference in the colors. I prefer the images from the Leica SL2 and the videos from the SL2S.
If you're a JPEG shooter, people often say that Leica colours are better than most cameras out of camera. To test this theory, I asked one of my models this question. She's used to seeing back of camera photos but doesn't know anything about the different cameras.
Oh my gosh, Matt, they're so beautiful. The pictures are so different with this camera. I like all of them.
So would you say that you can see a difference with this camera to other cameras?
Yeah, it's so big difference. Look, this picture, so beautiful. It's so professional. Oh my gosh, I love.
You think it's
I'm in love
the colours
with
that you see the difference? Or
Yes, it's so much difference. You cannot compare the other cameras with this one.
you probably realise it's not just the sensor that's important, it's the lens attached to your sensor. So you might get, say, slightly warmer colours or cooler colours from a particular sensor, but then if you put a certain brand lens on, maybe a Sigma lens, Lumix lens, Leica lens, third-party Chinese lens, vintage lens, all of those are going to give you different shades of colours, warmer, cooler, greener, pinker. It's a combination of the lens plus the camera that gives you the final colour.
I love the colour science. When I have my 75 Apo on, the colours are just wonderful.
So I think it's maybe a bit short-sighted looking at the colours of the sensor alone, because it really is the marriage of the lens and the camera that gives you the final look. 8, camera storage. Now historically, or well, for a long time, most cameras have been using SD cards for memory cards. All the cameras mentioned in today's video have got twin card slots, but some cameras are now starting to use SD plus CF Express type of B cards. The advantage of the CF Express type B cards is they record data faster, and so that's good if you're shooting, say, high-res video, things like that. Personally, for my needs, I'm happy with only SD cards because it's just one less complication when it comes to reading files. 9. Camera weight. Now this is particularly important if you've ever picked up a LEICA SL series camera. The first thing you'll notice compared to most camera brands is these cameras are solid. For some people the weight of LEICA SL cameras is just too heavy, especially when you attach, say, the 24-90 zoom lens. For that reason you'd be better looking at LUMIX cameras or the very latest LEICA cameras where you now do see a weight saving. Number 10, video. Now I know this is not a popular topic, especially for LEICA photographers, but if you saw my last upload I was comparing the video capabilities of LEICA cameras and they can actually be really good. I even invited Lucas onto the channel, LEICA filmmaker from the US, to help us understand which is the best LEICA for video.
Even after updating the firmware, there are a few video features that are going to be different in the SL2 and the SL2S. The biggest one, again, being the external ProRes RAW recording with the SL2S. But also on the LEICA SL2, you are able to shoot in 5K instead of the 4K.
Number 11, perhaps the most important topic, especially if you're on a budget, is the camera price. Price of the LUMIX and LEICA cameras range from £700 used all the way through to £6,000 for the latest model. So there really is something for all budgets. If you don't mind not having a LEICA badge, you can pick up the LUMIX S5 used for as little as £700 and it will still take the same great photos of most of the cameras mentioned in this review. And then if you want the latest and greatest, you could get the LEICA SL3, which comes in just under £6,000. I think the grey area is in between because now you're getting LUMIX cameras costing more than flagship LEICA cameras. For example, if you buy a new LUMIX S1R2, that costs more than the LEICA SL2S and the LEICA SL2 if you buy those cameras used on places like MPB.
I wanted to explore some wildlife options and therefore looked for something with a few more megapixels and better autofocus. And so I looked at both the SL3 and the new S1R2. I decided to go for the S1R2 both in terms of cost and as a more lightweight package. And so far finding excellent, particularly with the Sigma 500mm f5.6 DGDN Sport and the Leica 70-200mm Vario Elmer 2.8.
There's nothing wrong with the older cell. EVF is slightly different, buttons are slightly different, but yeah, it's pretty much the same but with added functionality.
And bonus, we of course need a bonus, the UI, the user interface. If user interface is important to you, Leica is always going to be LUMIX. They just have that sweet spot where they give you enough buttons without being too many buttons to cause confusion and really simple, easy to navigate menus. Bonus point number 2, it goes without saying, if the feel of the camera is important, again you're probably going to prefer the Leica cameras compared to LUMIX cameras. If you do a blind test, you close your eyes and you pick up a LUMIX camera or a Leica camera, the first thing you'll notice is the weight. LUMIX cameras tend to be lighter, except the S1R, that was a bit of a tank. If you pick up a Leica camera, it feels nice, it feels more premium, it feels more solid, and it just feels nicer. It just gives you more confidence when you pick it up. It sounds silly, but if that's important to you, you're going to prefer Leica cameras. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and feel free to subscribe. Check out MrLeica.com if you want written reviews and example photos. And check out Patreon if you want to see me using these cameras on my photo shoots. Hope to catch you in the next video.